Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Friday, August 29th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Texas game in 1 day, the game against Michigan in 93 days. If you're planning your next event, make it unforgettable with Grateful Griddle, Columbus's favorite food truck, serving up smash burgers, gourmet sandwiches, and good vibes. Book your catering today at gratefulgriddleoh.com. The vibes on today's show are going to depend on which half you're listening to first, and depending on which team you're rooting for. In Saturday's big game between number 1 Texas and number 2 Ohio State. We're going to be doing 4 reasons Ohio State will beat Texas and 4 reasons Texas will beat Ohio State, because honestly, this is going to be a pretty good, pretty competitive game. And really, I don't think anyone should be all that confident they know exactly who's going to win, but we're going to be talking about it, both sides of things. We're doing it with our buddy Kevin Noon of BuckeyeHuddle.com. Kevin, we're going to start here with 4 reasons Ohio State will beat Texas. If you're watching this on YouTube, you just search for 4 reasons Texas will beat Ohio State. That'll be out in just a few hours. You can get the other side of things there on YouTube, on your podcast platforms. This will all be in one big show. But all right, Kevin, let's start with, if Ohio State's going to beat Texas, you can look through and there's plenty of areas where you go, yeah, that's a real area of strength for this team. That's a real area of strength for this team. And then you get to Texas's offensive line, and between some turnover and some injuries and guys who aren't going to play or guys who are going to play but maybe not be 100%, that feels like that's not a strength for Texas. And that's an area where if you're on the road in a hostile environment, you want to be feeling good about your offensive line. And I'm not sure how great Texas is feeling about theirs.
I've talked to 3 different Texas people kind of off the record. And the varying concern about the offensive line is from concerned to quite concerned. I guess it just depends on what the tolerance of each person is. But yeah, they only really have one true returning starter. That doesn't mean they don't have any other starts on their offensive line, but they really only have one true starter who's coming back. And then when you couple that with some injuries, one of their tackles is going to be playing apparently with a cast on his hand. I mean, that's just not ideal. And as you mentioned, first start as a unit on the road. Say what you will about a noon game. Maybe it's going to be sleepy, but I don't think it's going to be completely sleepy. I think people are going to get into it. It is problematic. Got a quarterback who's really making his first high leverage start. Arch does have some starts, but his first high leverage start, if Ohio State's able to speed him up because the offensive line isn't able to slow things down, that's not going to bode well. Now, I mean, on the flip side, Ohio State can't allow him to just get out there and start improvising with his legs. That sometimes happens when the pocket breaks down, when you're not comfortable in the pocket, things of that nature. But that Texas offensive line, I think I think the concerns are real. I don't think it's something that the media is ginning up to just get people talking, another talking point. Let's sell some subs or whatever. No, it's real. It's real. It is a concern there. And, because even if one of 3 people would come back to me, it's like, oh, that's just a load of hooey. It's just too much. None of them did it. And I mean, and one of the 3 brought it up before I could bring it up.
Yeah, that does feel like a concern. They lost someone for the season, a while ago, so this is not like a sudden thing, but one of their projected starters at tackle out for the year, Trevor Gooseby, is the one who may have a club on his hand or a wrapped hand or something like that. That's going to impact your ability to maybe do a little selective grabbing of guys coming around the edge. Like all this stuff this was a little bit of a concern before, and it feels like it's sort of become a little bit more of a concern for Texas as they've kind of gone through the preseason camp in the last month or so. So next up, and this is going to sound weird when you remember that he only had 1 catch versus for 3 yards in the Cotton Bowl the last time these 2 teams played earlier this year. But Texas has had some turnover in that secondary, and they lost a couple very, very talented players, one at corner, one at safety. And so now you're trying to replace those guys, and now you might not be able to do all the things you did against Jeremiah Smith in the Cotton Bowl. I think Texas, that secondary is another area where I don't think Texas is as concerned as offensive line, but I don't know that they're feeling great. And when you're going up against Jeremiah Smith and the rest of the Ohio State receiving core, that's another area where you would want to maybe be feeling a little better about things when you're walking into the Horseshoe on Saturday morning.
Exactly. I mean, they do have Malik Muhammad back. They got Michael Taffy back. I mean, they do have some talent in that secondary. But you do lose a lot there. And while Ohio State loses Emeka Egbuka, when you had Smith, Egbuka, and Tate, that certainly made things a little bit more complicated. Who's going to be the third receiver for Ohio State? And I think we're going to see a little bit of a, committee type of situation, whether it's Ennis or Bryson Rogers or Mylan Graham or whoever it may be. But can Texas, Texas certainly understands conceptually how to take Jeremiah Smith maybe out of the game a little bit, but that's easier said than done. And if you don't have the Jimmies and the Joes necessarily to do that, it's problematic for them. Now, I also think that Jeremiah is going to remember very vividly that Texas game, and he's good. Not that Jeremiah doesn't give 110% in every game, but I think that this one is going to be personal for him, and I think we're really going to see, it's not going to be from a lack of effort from Jeremiah to try and get open, to try and have some plays. I've gone back and I've watched that Texas game multiple times, and I've seen the little 3-yard play to Jeremiah, and it's like, can you believe it? That was it. I'm not saying that Jeremiah is going to go for $175 and 3 tutties, but I am saying I'm going to take the over of 1 reception and whatever was 3 yards. I'm taking the over.
Now, the bold prediction show is on the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed, not this one. That's a different show, a different market.
I'm not allowed to play in that sandbox.
You as someone who you don't want to play in that sandbox every week. That is, it is always one of the mysteriously popular shows that Tony and I do. Again, you can find that in the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed. And we did have some stuff on exactly what we're expecting from Jeremiah Smith on Saturday. So next up, we talked about the Texas offensive line. Ohio State also turning over a number of players from its offensive line from last year, but you've seen a lot of these guys doing it at a high level, not all at the same position, but you saw 4 of these guys playing on last year's team in the playoff against Texas, and they won. So you've got potentially an advantage there. And Texas, we'll get in the reasons to feel optimistic for Texas half of the programming on some of the guys, but the interior of that Texas defensive line, they're replacing a lot of guys. They lost a lot of talent. It feels like this could be a game where Ohio State wins on the trenches on both sides of the ball. And if you do that, that becomes a tougher game to lose.
Right, exactly. I mean, we've talked about Ohio State maybe having 7, 8 guys game ready on the offensive line. You generally only play 5 unless you're getting really, exotic with your moves and everything else. So, what does it look like for Ohio State? The interior line is, that's where the depth of talent is in terms of Ohio State experience. Whereas, you may, with Phillip Daniels or with, with the Rice transfer, I mean, they have experience at their programs, but, with the lack of depth that Texas has on the interior line, coupled with Ohio State's interior line, I think that's a good situation. Now, what happens out of the tackle position, I think that's going to tell us a lot of stuff there. But when you have an inexperienced quarterback in Julian Sayin, getting him an extra second, maybe even 2 Mississippis out there is not going to hurt, for him to be able to scan the field, maybe have some more complex routes being run, things of that nature. Let Jeremiah Smith do some Jeremiah Smith type of things. All of that's important.
Yeah, if you can give Jeremiah Smith a chance to get down there, you can run the Jeremiah down there somewhere play. Guessing that is going to be in the playbook somewhere on Saturday. Last thing, and you sort of touched on this earlier a little bit, Ohio State does have the home field advantage. And yeah, I know it's a noon game and it's not going to be quite as, spirited, zesty, whatever you want to say, as a primetime game might be. But we've seen Ohio State make opponents run silent count. This kind of goes in hand with some of the offensive line stuff we talked about. It just makes life a little more difficult. And in a game where the talent is really pretty equated in a lot of spots, something like just having to take that extra half a second to look down the line for the silent count or whatever it is, that might be a difference maker. And, so you would rather play this, I don't know exactly how much it's going to help, but you'd rather play this game in Columbus than Austin if you're Ohio State.
Yeah, exactly. Ohio State at no point was going to sign up to play back-to-back years in Austin. You're going to take your home game. I mean, again, a lot of feelings, a lot of anger that this isn't a night game or even a 3:30 game. To split the difference. It is what it is. I mean, it's a noon game. I guess your choice is, if you're that mad about it, don't watch it. Don't think that that's going to happen, though. I think you're going to watch it. But yeah, Ohio State can get out there and create some havoc with the fans and force the silent counts. I don't think it's going to do anything in terms of getting Ohio State any benefits in terms of getting holding calls going in its direction, because we saw that was an issue last year. But it's a new year. Maybe things will be different. But if you're watching this and you have a ticket to the game, I'm sure that Ryan Day would really want Tom and myself to say, "Be loud," from opening kickoff until Carmen, Ohio, at the end of the game. But yeah, I think it certainly is a benefit, because if you look at this, I mean, the line on Thursday was still 1.5, 2, depending on the book. So honestly, if you go with the true number, this were at a neutral site. But I mean, it'd be a pick'em, maybe edging slightly toward Texas if you believe that home field is 3.5, or something like that. So, this is a chance that, if you want to get one of those Buckeyes that they're talking about issuing to the crowd as part of their new stadium game day experience situation, be drinking some hot tea, on Friday, just to make sure that the vocal cords are clear and everything else, so you can be as loud as possible.